You've heard about the left's long march through institutions. Well, now they're leaving their grubby socialist footprints all over the Australian judicial system. Now, it was announced last week that cultural awareness and diversity will now be key considerations in selecting Australian judges. Oh, and if the judges have somewhat of an interest in the law, I guess that'd be okay as well. But can you believe this? The importance of merit as whether or not an applicant is actually any good will be reassessed. The new criteria was announced in the newly updated Australasian Institute of Judicial Administration Handbook, which serves as a guide for appointing new judges. It's frankly madness. To appoint judges based on their diversity is to risk bringing the courts into disrepute. No, it's not a risk. It will bring the courts into disrepute. In fact, I predict that if we pursue this course, the courts will become just another public institution that has lost the confidence of the community, in the same way as the universities and our corporate elites have. Now, how on earth, serious question, how on earth does diversity contribute to impartiality? In what universe does diversity help to ensure consistency of results?
What you are seeing increasingly in Australia, and particularly in Victoria, is what's called activist judges. So these are political operatives who do their law degree, get a job in the law, work their way up the law, and it's what we call the long march through the institutions. You now have hardcore left-wingers making legal decisions.
Diversity actually pushes in the direction of difference of thinking and therefore, obviously, difference of result. It is pure doublespeak to bang on about the importance of diversity and impartiality in the same breath. What we don't want to see is the Australian legal system politicized like it has been in the United States. Now, I'm sure that you would have seen over the weekend that Donald Trump was fined $350 million for allegedly overinflating the value of properties in order to get higher loans. The banks from whom Trump borrowed money were all repaid with interest. The banks were so happy that in the court case, they testified, get this, in Trump's defense. They made tens of millions of dollars off of Trump. So there was never any complaint about any wrongdoing, and the so-called victims, the banks, maintained all along that they were not victims, but they were in fact winners. Winners of millions of dollars of Trump's money. So, Trump was convicted of a crime in which there was no victim and no complainant. These were business deals between two consenting parties who negotiated agreed valuations and interest rates. There was no aggrieved party. In fact, the bank explained to the court that they did their own due diligence. And the paperwork that is part of the evidence has a written disclaimer as to the validity and the accuracy of the figures therein, advising that parties needed to do their own due diligence. This is the kind of deal that happens hundreds of times a day in New York between developers and lenders. But what are we talking about here exactly? Well, let me give you one example. Have you ever heard of Mar-a-Lago? If you haven't, it's one of many Trump properties. It is literally a national historic landmark in Palm Beach, Florida, and it sits on 17 acres of land with 126 rooms. It's been visited by Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, CCP leader Xi Jinping, and quite literally countless other very important and influential people. The place is like I said before, historic landmark. Now, US Palm Beach luxury real estate agents have said that this property would sell for approximately $300 to $600 million and possibly up to $1 billion or more if it sparked a bidding war among ultra wealthy contenders.
Any lending institution, any insurance company, they have a fiduciary responsibility to determine the valuation themselves, bring in their own appraisers. As a matter of fact, every one of those contracts, when they put valuations down, that is stipulated in the contract. You ask any appraiser in Palm Beach, Florida, to put a value on Mar-a-Lago, and they all should come out with their valuations, and there's not going to be one under $400 million, and that's going to be on the low side.
But what did the judge say? According to the judge, who is, by the way, a lifelong Democrat donor, the property is only valued at US $18 million to $28 million. Therefore, according to the judge, Trump and his company engaged in fraud because he exaggerated Mar-a-Lago's worth. Now, the real question is why the courts are intervening in this one. What law was broken here? And if a law was broken, Why aren't the courts full of similar cases? Why aren't the banks upset? In fact, why are they testifying in Trump's defense? Even Trump haters would have to concede this case is entirely political, and that's the problem.
Some of them seem to be enjoying their time in the spotlight.
They certainly are. I think that footage of the judge won't age well because, taking off the glasses and smiling as it's some kind of comedy show, which it might be to him, is not a good look because judges are supposed to be neutral. They're supposed to metaphorically be wearing that blindfold of justice and just expressing that neutrality on their faces and just responding to the facts that are presented in the four walls of the courtroom. And it's any defendant's worst nightmare if you walk into a courtroom and you think the fix is in or the judge already has made up his mind. So
when courts are politicized, people no longer trust the system and ultimately civility breaks down. I fear that we may see violence in the US because people believe, and for good reason, mind you, that problems cannot be solved fairly by the courts. Now, we are not America, at least not yet, but the decision to prioritize diversity and cultural awareness when selecting judges compromises our political system and sets us on a similarly dangerous path. I'm Senator Alphabet for the United Australia Party.